After I sold my grandfather clock for my stepson's hockey uniform, I came home and caught my wife laughing with him. They were filming TikTok, living with a bankrupt stepfather, day 125. The camera zoomed in on my face while I was sleeping. The caption, tired of doing nothing. I just watched in silence. Then this morning, a bunch of missed calls. They're begging to pick up the phone. My name's Andrew, I'm 39, and for the last 7 years I've been married to Laura, who's now 36. She came into our relationship with a son from a previous marriage, Austin, who's 16 now. His biological dad has been out of the picture since he was around 5. When I met him, Austin was this quiet, shy 9-year-old who spent hours tinkering with Lego sets and watching YouTube tutorials about building things. Fast forward 7 years and now the kid lives and breeds golf. Yeah, golf. Apparently it's his calling and he wants to go pro one day. And let me tell you something, golf is not a cheap passion. Between custom clubs, private lessons, course fees, travel for tournaments, and gear that somehow needs replacing every other month, the costs have been eating us alive. But I never complained. Not out loud anyway. I started working extra shifts at the shipping warehouse. Even did handyman work on weekends just to keep up. We didn't have much, but I made it work. Because I loved them. Because I wanted to give Austin the kind of support I never had. I didn't just sign up to be Laura's husband, I wanted to be Austin's dad too. I really did. Meanwhile, Laura ran the house. At least that's what she said. What it looked like most days was her scrolling on her phone for hours and ordering DoorDash every time it was her night to cook. But whatever. I brushed it off. I figured if she's happy and Austin's thriving, maybe that's enough. Then came last month. Austin got accepted into some elite junior golf program out of state. Suddenly, we needed to come up with another $15,000 for equipment upgrades, travel, and development camp fees. Our credit cards were already maxed out and I was at my breaking point. But Laura kept saying how devastated Austin would be if he couldn't go, how all the other boys on the team were doing it, how this could be his one shot. So I did something I swore I never would. I sold my grandfather's Zippo. Now, I know to most people it's just a lighter. But it was a vintage 1940s Zippo engraved with my grandfather's initials. He gave it to me the year he died of lung cancer, said it was the only thing he ever splurged on when he got back from the war. He raised me when my parents fell apart. That lighter was the one physical thing I had left of him. And I swore I'd pass it down one day, maybe to Austin. I got $4,800 for it at a collector's shop. Felt like I was tearing out a piece of myself. But I handed the money over, no questions asked. Austin got his new graphite clubs, flight to California, and a week at some resort training camp. And I told myself, this is what dads do. Then came yesterday. It was Saturday and I came home early from a drywall repair job. My back was killing me and all I wanted was to take a hot shower and lay down. Laura's car was in the driveway but the house was unusually quiet. No smell of food, no TV, no music. I figured maybe they were upstairs watching a movie or something. I headed up and heard laughter coming from Austin's room, Laura's voice and his. I paused in the hallway, smiling for a second, thinking, nice, they're bonding. The door was cracked open, so I leaned in without really thinking. They were both sitting on Austin's bed, huddled over his phone, laughing so hard Laura was wiping tears from her eyes. Then I heard Austin say, can you believe he bought that whole titanium shaft improves control garbage? Dude thought it was some kind of miracle club. Laura snorted. Well, he's not exactly the brightest. Remember when he thought the coach actually called to invite him to that parent-player bonding weekend? That was just so we could have Chase over without him being around. Chase? Who the hell is Chase? Austin laughed and held up his phone. Look at the comments on yesterday's post. And then I heard him read aloud, Life with a Bargain Bin Stepdad, Day 125. They both burst out laughing again. I don't know how long I stood there. Probably too long. Something inside me just dropped. I backed away quietly, walked downstairs, and sat on the couch. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone. Found the TikTok account in seconds. Username at GolfLifeGoldKid. 92 videos. 51,000 followers. Each one mocking me. One showed me sleeping on the couch after a long shift. Caption, when your stepdad works 3 jobs but still can't afford AirPods. Another one was a close-up of my old work boots. Caption, fashion tip, holes in your soles mean you're grounded. Another showed me watching our bank app. Caption, the moment you realize breathing costs money. But the one that killed me, absolutely gutted me, was from the day after I sold the Zippo. Austin is wearing this ridiculous oversized fake gold watch, holding it up to the camera like he's flexing. Laura's filming. The caption read, Upgraded from Grandpa's garage sale junk. I watched it twice. Maybe 3 times. And then something inside me just stopped. No rage. No yelling. Just stillness. That night, when they came downstairs, Austin asked if he could get pizza for dinner. I gave him $40 and said nothing. Laura glanced at me and asked if I was feeling down again. With that fake sympathetic look she does when she wants something. I told her I was just tired. But that night, while she slept next to me, I lay wide awake, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. 7 years of being their joke. 7 years of working my ass off so she could scroll Instagram and he could play country club pretend. 7 years of trying to build a family. And I realized I was never in the family. I was just the guy funding it. At 4 a.m., I got out of bed, made some phone calls. By 6 a.m., I had a plan. By 7 a.m., I was gone. They didn't even notice. Not at first. Laura sleeps until noon on Saturdays, and Austin barely emerges before 1 p.m. But by mid-afternoon, my phone started buzzing. Missed calls. Texts. Where are you? Where's the grocery money? Why isn't your location on? And then, panic. Because they realized what I took with me, and what I left behind. After I walked out that Saturday morning, I didn't look back. I took a couple of essentials, my documents, some clothes, my toolbox, and the photo of my grandfather and me from when I graduated high school. Everything else I left behind. I drove straight to my sister Molly's place. She's always been my anchor. No questions asked, just opened the door, saw the look on my face, and pointed to the guest room. Stay as long as you need, she said, then went to make coffee. That afternoon, I sat at her kitchen table and made a list. Not just a grocery list or a to-do list. I made a breakdown of everything I had given, time, money, patience, and what I had gotten in return. I also made a second list, everything I was about to take back. The first thing on that list was my grandfather's Sippo. First thing Monday morning, I called in sick to the warehouse and drove to the collector's shop where I'd sold it. The owner recognized me instantly. I told him I wanted it back, and he frowned. Still have it, he said. Hadn't listed it yet, was thinking about cleaning it up first. He bumped the price, of course. I paid $5,200 to buy back something that should have never left my hands. I didn't even flinch. That lighter meant more to me than any zero on a check. I drove straight to Molly's and locked it in the little fireproof safe she kept in her closet. Just seeing it again calmed something deep inside me. Then came phase 2, the financial extraction. I opened a new account at a completely different bank and arranged for my next paycheck to be deposited there. I also withdrew $8,000 from the Joint Emergency Savings Fund. You know, the one Laura claimed was for Austin's future. Apparently, his future only involved clubs, plane tickets, and endless tournaments. After that, I started slashing subscriptions. All the streaming services I'd been paying for? Gone. The overpriced meal kit plans Laura never used? Cancelled. Her monthly makeup box and skincare box? Done. I even removed myself from our family cell plan and signed up for a basic prepaid line. The best part? They had no idea. While they were still uploading broke stepdad jokes for their followers, I was erasing myself from their financial ecosystem bit by bit. I even started documenting every dollar I'd spent on Austin over the years, training camps, gear, tournament fees, travel, club memberships, etc. The final number? $72,630.42. I could have bought a whole house with that. Then I called a lawyer. Initial consultation was free. I showed him the TikToks. His eyebrows climbed halfway to his hairline before he muttered, "Jesus, that's emotional abuse." I asked him what my options were. He said, "If you're serious, we can start immediately. But don't expect it to be clean." I paid his retainer right there using a chunk of that emergency fund. Worth every penny. While all that was happening, I started planting little seeds back home. I left divorce paperwork in the glove box of my car, which I knew Laura sometimes used to charge her phone. I made a point of leaving tabs open on my laptop, apartments in another city, moving truck rentals, solo health insurance options. Subtle, but enough to raise questions. When I dropped by the house one afternoon under the pretense of grabbing tools, I took down all the family pictures from the hallway and quietly packed them in a box labeled past. I left that box open in the garage, right next to the recycling bin. I also started acting off, taking phone calls in the bathroom, coming home later and later. saying I was tired whenever Laura asked why I wasn't talkative, letting Austin think I'd spoken to his coach I hadn't, just to watch the color drain from his face. But the real kicker? I made a brand new email account. Anonymous. No profile pic. I used it to send links to Austin's TikTok account to every contact I could think of. Parents from his golf team. Laura's parents, who helped pay for some of his equipment. His school counselor. Neighbors. A couple of mutual friends. Subject line, thought you might want to see this. No message body. Just the links. Then finally I waited. They were scheduled to be out of town for a long weekend. Austin had a tournament in another state and Laura was going with him. They left Friday afternoon. I watched their car pull out of the driveway from my sister's porch, then gave it an hour. At exactly 3 p.m. I pulled up to the house, used my key one last time, and let myself in. First, I changed the locks. Legally, I could. My name was the only one on the deed. Then I walked through every room, calmly grabbing what I needed, my tools, some clothes I'd left behind, personal documents, the wedding album for legal purposes, and a few family heirlooms they'd never even noticed. Then I did what needed to be done. On the kitchen table, I laid out printouts of some of the worst TikTok captions and comments. I placed them neatly in a folder. On top, I left a copy of the divorce papers. And on top of that, I put a handwritten note. Congratulations on going viral. Hope it was worth it. Andrew. Before I left, I unplugged the Wi-Fi router, which was in my name, turned off the thermostat, also in my name, and changed the passwords to the streaming accounts. Then I walked out the front door, locked it behind me, and slipped the new keys into my pocket. That night was quiet. Almost too quiet. Molly made spaghetti. I had 2 servings and didn't say much. I kept checking my phone, waiting. The messages started coming in at 10:42 p.m. First from Laura, "Hey, can't get into the house, did something happen to the lock?" Then, "Hello? Andrew." Then, "Are you f***ing serious right now?" Austin followed up with, "Bro, where's the Wi-Fi? My data's almost out." Then came the fury. "You're being petty. You're ruining everything. You left us stranded." Then came the desperation. "Laura, please. Can we talk? I'm sorry. It was just jokes. Austin, I'll delete the account. Just answer, please." By Saturday morning, Laura was calling every 5 minutes. By Sunday afternoon, she was sobbing into my voicemail. And by Monday, I had voicemail from Laura's dad. The same man who once told me I'd never be real family. He was apologizing. When Laura's father called me Monday morning, I almost let it go to voicemail like the 100 messages before. But something made me answer. Maybe curiosity. Maybe a need to finally hear what someone from that side had to say without a smirk behind it. He didn't waste time. "Andrew," he said, voice low and tired. "I had no idea what was going on in that house. I'm sorry. Truly. I raised Laura to be better than that." It was the first apology I'd ever received from him. The same man who once told Laura, within earshot, that she'd married below her potential, that she was settling by being with someone who worked with his hands. Now suddenly he was humbled, broken even. He told me the TikTok videos had made it to their extended family, to people at his workplace, even to some of Laura's old friends. Said his phone hadn't stopped ringing all weekend, that Laura's mother was mortified, and that they'd paid for a locksmith just to get her and Austin back into the house. They weren't speaking much, apparently. I didn't say much either. I just told him the truth. There was nothing left to fix. I wasn't coming back. Not to them. Not to the house. Not to the role they'd assigned me and laughed at behind closed doors. I met with my lawyer again that afternoon. We added all the recent voicemails and messages to the documentation, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about building a solid, airtight case. By then, I'd been living at Molly's for almost a week and a half. She insisted I treat the place like home, even stocked the fridge with my favorite snacks. And not once did she say, "I told you so," though she absolutely could have. She never liked Laura. Always said Austin looked at me like I was the help, not family. She'd been right. And speaking of betrayal, remember that name I overheard? Chase? Turns out Chase wasn't just a name. He was Laura's private fitness coach. The guy she said came by twice a week for stretching sessions. Molly's neighbor, who happened to drive past my old house every day for work, Mentioned seeing Chase's car parked there late at night when I was usually still working overtime. That one stung. Not because I still loved her. I didn't, but because it added another layer to the long list of humiliations I'd swallowed for years. But honestly, the part that hit me hardest was Austin. About 6 weeks in, I got a text from a random number. I almost blocked it, but the message stopped me. Had to sell my gear. Hope you're happy. No name. Just that. I didn't reply. What could I even say? Sorry you had to pawn the clubs I bought while you were mocking me to your TikTok followers? Still, I won't lie, reading that gave me a strange ache. Not guilt. More like grief for what I once hoped we could have had. If he had ever really seen me as more than a bank account, maybe things could have been different. But that version of the story never existed. Only the fantasy I built in my head. Around week 7, Laura finally got a job. At a local coffee shop of all places. I heard through one of our old neighbors, who stopped in for a drink and saw her behind the counter. She looked exhausted, they said. Like real life hit her all at once. Welcome to the world the rest of us live in, Laura. The divorce process was slow, as these things usually are. But eventually, we had to sit across from each other in the same room for mediation. First time I'd seen them both since walking out. Laura looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 months. Her usual high-end makeup and designer clothes were gone, replaced with a hoodie, tired eyes, and a desperate smile that didn't reach her cheeks. Austin wouldn't even look at me. My lawyer brought printouts, captions, screenshots, comment threads. The mediator took one look and sighed. The phrase emotional abuse came up again. When she asked Laura to explain why she thought this content was acceptable, Laura mumbled something about it being just jokes, and everyone makes funny videos. Everyone doesn't record themselves demeaning someone who raised their child, the mediator said flatly. For a brief moment, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. But there was one moment that nearly broke me. Austin finally lifted his head. For the first time in years, he looked small again. Not like the cocky teen from the videos, but like that quiet 9-year-old who used to build Lego towers in the living room. He looked at me and whispered, "Do you still have the lighter?" "I'm sorry. I didn't understand what it meant to you." For a second, just a second, I wanted to believe him. But then I remembered the TikTok. Him grinning with a fake watch on his wrist. Laura laughing behind the camera. The caption mocking, "Grandpa's dusty old lighter." And that moment of softness vanished. I didn't answer. Just looked back at the mediator. The settlement itself was straightforward. The house was sold, market's awful right now, so we both took a loss. Laura tried to claim half of my retirement account, but my lawyer brought proof that she'd been draining our finances for years while contributing nothing. That shut her down fast. The most unexpected part? Laura's parents reached out again a month later. This time, they asked to meet in person. I agreed, at a public cafe, middle of the day. They showed up looking worn down. Laura's dad looked like he hadn't slept in days. Her mom kept wringing her hands. He started talking first. "I raised her wrong," he said. "I never taught her what respect really means. I enabled it. Watching how she treated you. I see it now." Then he slid an envelope across the table. Inside was $5,000. "For the lighter," he said. "It's not repayment. It's acknowledgement. Of everything." I tried to decline, but he insisted. I took the envelope, walked home and put it straight into savings. The last time I saw Laura was when I returned to the old house to pick up a few things from the garage. I didn't expect her to be there, but of course, she was waiting. She looked normal. Not glamorous. Just tired. She tried small talk, then begged. Said we could fix it. That she missed us. I didn't argue. Just kept packing. Then she got angry. "You enjoy this, don't you? Watching us suffer." I finally looked her in the eyes and said, "This isn't about revenge. This is about consequences. You don't get to mock someone's kindness and expect them to stay." She asked about the Zippo. I rolled up my sleeve and showed it resting in my breast pocket. Her face crumpled. Austin came home just as I was loading the last box. He didn't say sorry. Didn't ask how I was. He just looked at me and said, "Can you help me with math later? Like you used to." I shut the trunk, got in my car, and drove away. Didn't say a word. Didn't look back. It's been just over 3 months since I left that driveway and didn't look back. I hadn't planned to write anything more about it, but this morning I woke up to a message on Reddit. Hey man, how are things now? Did you ever find peace? I sat with that question for a while. So here I am, typing this out from my small apartment in a new city, coffee cup on the windowsill, watching the rain tap against the glass. It's nothing fancy. One bedroom, weird creaky floors, an old stove that takes 15 minutes to heat up. My bed frame is still just a mattress on the floor. But it's mine. And it's quiet. No TikTok laughter echoing through walls. No guilt in the corners of every conversation. No passive-aggressive sighs about what I can't afford. Just quiet. After the mediation, after the final court date, things unraveled quickly on their side. Laura and Austin couldn't afford the rent on their own, and from what I've heard through mutual connections, they moved in with her parents. It hasn't been going well. Apparently, Austin is having trouble at school. Without golf tournaments and weekend travel, he lost the star kid treatment. No more leeway from teachers. No spotlight. He's just another teenager now. His grades slipped. I heard he quit the team completely. Laura's still at the coffee shop. Word is she's burned out already. Working morning shifts, coming home to a full house she can't control, barely keeping it together. Some nights I hear she sits in her car for half an hour before going inside. Honestly, I don't feel sorry for them. Not anymore. This isn't revenge. This is just what happens when the cushions get pulled out and people have to sit in the real world for once. The last time I saw either of them was 2 weeks ago. I had to go back to grab a few boxes from the old storage unit I'd rented before moving. Mostly old books, tools, and a few keepsakes I hadn't gotten around to unpacking. I pulled into the lot and there she was. Laura, sitting on the curb like she'd been waiting. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. Just jeans, a plain sweatshirt, and an expression I couldn't quite read. She stood when she saw me. Smiled that old nervous smile she used to wear when she wanted something. I've been meaning to reach out, she said. I didn't say anything. I miss you, she continued. Things are different now. I've had time to think. I kept packing. You don't even want to talk? After everything we went through? I closed the trunk. She took a step closer. Are you really that cold now? That's when I looked at her. Really looked. And I told her. I'm not cold. I'm just done. I spent 7 years trying to be part of something that didn't actually exist. You made me feel like I was lucky to be in your life when the truth is you were lucky I stuck around as long as I did. You mocked my sacrifices, made me the punchline to your little videos, and then acted shocked when I stopped playing along. She blinked fast like she was holding back tears. I made a mistake. I know that. No, Laura, I said, you made a pattern. And patterns don't change just because you lose your audience. She asked about the Zippo. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled it out, and held it up for her to see. I got it back, I said. And I won't ever let it go again. She nodded. For once, she didn't argue. A minute later, Austin pulled up in an old sedan, probably borrowed from her dad. He got out, saw me, and froze. For a second, I thought he might say something real. Maybe an apology. Maybe a thank you. Instead, he looked at me like nothing had happened. You still good at math? He asked. I've got this take-home quiz. I let out a breath, closed the door to my car, and said nothing. I left. And just like that, the final thread between us snapped. Since then, life has been simple. Not always easy, but simple. My job here is a lateral move. Still warehouse work, but it's steadier. No toxic overtime demands. My supervisor is respectful. I clock in, I do my job, I go home. No drama. I joined a hiking group a few weeks ago. Not for the exercise, I'm still sore half the time, but for the quiet company. Met a woman named Rachel. We've been on a few walks together. No pressure. No future plans. Just two people trying to exist peacefully. I'm okay with that. At night, I sit in my tiny kitchen, open a book, make some tea. Sometimes I microwave frozen dinners. Sometimes I cook from scratch just because I can. I stop checking my bank account every single day. I'm not rich, but I'm not drained anymore. The Zippo sits on my nightstand. Every night before bed, I take a moment to hold it. Not light it, just hold it. Feel the weight. Remember the hand that gave it to me. Sometimes I talk to my grandfather in my head. Tell him I got it back. That I kept my word, eventually. That I walked away from people who didn't see my worth. Do I miss them? No. But I do miss what I thought we had. The family I imagined. The bond one hoped would grow. I miss a reality that never actually existed outside my own head. The other day, I saw a teenage boy in the grocery store parking lot helping his stepdad load heavy bags into the trunk. They were laughing. Just a simple moment, but it caught me off guard. For a second, I felt that familiar ache. Not regret. Not longing. Just sadness. Sadness for what I never had. But I smiled anyway. Because I'm free now. And sometimes peace is just that, no noise. No humiliation. No pretending. Just peace. And a Zippo that still works after all these years.